A transfer of rulership is coming, and the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Righteousness will be spread throughout the whole four corners of the earth. Wickedness will be put down. Eternal life. That's what's promised to the elect. All right, all Israel, but it starts with the elect. And that's how the earth will be governed by immortals, perfect angelic forces who are going to come down and rule on earth. Extraterrestrial bodies will be able to do things that humans do, but in heavenly bodies, like eating, drinking. Did not Yahushua say he's going to drink wine with us in the kingdom? Well, how do you drink wine with a spiritual body? Well, we're going to have out of this world capabilities in those new bodies.
Look, when Babylon is destroyed on fire, it's going to shake up the whole world. We're going to be beamed up. The hopeful elect, if we're the elect, we're going to be beamed up. And we're going to see this destruction pursuant to Psalms 91 and other scriptures. And we're going to hover over Babylon and we're going to see the destruction. We're going to get a ringside seat to the war of Armageddon. And then we're going to come back down. When we come back down to the earth, we taking everything over. The saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah. All right, and what I want to get into today and just finish out, all right, the book of 2 Timothy, all right, chapter 4, all right, which is the last chapter, of the book of 2 Timothy, which many believe, to be Paul's, last recorded words, before he was beheaded in Rome, under Nero, okay, during the time of the beginning, the persecution of the believers of the church, okay, under the Roman government, okay, which Nero jumped that off. Now, let's get straight into it, okay. Let's go over here to the book of 2 Timothy, and this chapter, that encourages us to finish, okay, in the faith, when you go to the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 4, okay, and it says 2 Timothy chapter 4, okay, in verse 1, it says, I charge thee before the Most High and the Lord Yahweh Shah Hamashiach, who shall judge the quick, all right, and the dead at his appearing, all right, and his kingdom, okay, because Yahweh Shah is coming to judge the earth, and the quick, okay, is the elect, okay, that have been quickened by this word, and the dead is these heathens, and 2/3 of our people. Okay, so let's prove real quick who's the quick. All right, let's go here to the book of St. John, just to show who's the quick and who's been, all right, quickened by this word. This is the book of St. John, chapter 6. Okay. And you go to what verse? All right, 63. Okay. It says, it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profited nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. Okay. So those whom received his word, the Israelites that received his word have been quickened by the spirit, because his word is a spirit. It's the spirit of Yahushua, his word. So we received his word, as we believe, as we, repented and live according to his word, we've been quickened. We've been brought back to life, and the judgment for that is we're going to be rewarded. All right. Because Yahushua is coming to judge the quick. All right. The elect, those who have been quickened. All right. By this word, that has been endowed with the Holy Spirit of life. You see? But on the other side, the dead, okay, which it goes into the nations and 2/3. All right. But this is matter of fact, we'll come back to that. We'll come back and we'll segue. But to go here, okay, because it says, well, he's coming to reward the quick, all right, and the dead. Okay. When you go here, matter of fact, let's get this in Isaiah, then get that in Revelation. Go back to John and tie it all together. All right, so let's go here. All right, so the quick is the believers, the Israelites, to come back to life, by receiving this word. Okay, well, then you go here. All right, to Isaiah 14:9. It said, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. Now, this is addressing, all right, Babylon, which is ran by who? Esau, Edom. Okay, because Babylon is the capital, of Esau's empire. Okay, this global dominion that Esau has spread over the earth, where Babylon has been his capital. When you address the capital, you address the whole empire. Okay, but going into Isaiah 14:9, it said, hell beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming, because this devil, all right, he's getting ready to go through this destruction. All right, and he's getting ready to go into captivity. Because hell, it speaks of judgment. All right, it goes into Gehenna, which was a place of burning trash and, dead animals in Israel. Okay, which America is going to be destroyed in nuclear fire, consuming fire. Okay, and then hell, goes into a condition as well. Okay, you devils are getting ready to go into captivity. So hell beneath is moved for thee. There's an appointment, all right, with destruction and captivity for you devils, man. And America, all right, is going to get the bulk of their destruction. Okay, it's going to be a consuming fire, okay, that ignites in America due to these nukes, man. All right, it says it stirred up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. Okay, speaking of these heathens, okay, because they are likened unto the dead, in this rulership of Esau, Edom, these heathens. All right, they don't have, true power, and now also they're in this spirit of rebellion, which pushed them in the spirit of the dead, because Esau, his rulership is a rulership of the dead, man. It's a rulership of death, and it says it had raised up, all right, it had raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations, okay, which they represent, the dead, man, because true life comes from Israel. These heathens don't have life within them. Okay, true life comes from the nation of Israel, beginning with Yahushua. Okay, and we're going to get that. All right, and that's why life begins with the elect being quickened by this word. Okay, so Yahushua, he's coming to judge the quick and the dead. Okay, and you go here to, all right, Revelation 11:18. It says, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, all right, that they should be judged, going into these heathens. Okay, everyone, all these heathens that's a conglomerate Esau, they're considered the dead, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets. Okay, that's the quick and the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great. That's the rest of the 1/3, men, women, and children. All right, that's the quick that's going to receive what? A reward, eternal life. Okay, and become their eternal ruling class. Okay, in the earth, even amongst Israel. Okay, it says, and should it destroy them which destroy the earth, which is Esau, Edom. So this is what Yahweh Shai is coming to do. Okay, this is the judgment that's gonna go forth. Okay, these heathens gonna be judged. A lot of these heathens finna be put to death and go into captivity. Okay, Esau finna experience mass slaughter and go into captivity. Okay, and 2/3 they're gonna be slaughtered. They're gonna get caught up in the slaughter aspect of it. And eventually they're gonna be born into a righteous kingdom. Now let's get this real quick. Now let's go back to John and link Jake, all right, with being the dead. Okay, you go back to John, all right, because as Yahweh Shai is teaching, what happens? He's talking about how, the words are spirit and life, all right. But what happens is, but some of you that believe not, all right. It said, but there are some of you that believe not, for Yahweh Shai knew from the beginning who they were that believe not and who will betray him. And he said, therefore said I unto you that no man can come unto me except, all right, it was given unto him of my Father, all right, because the elect is predestined. Those that was predestined to be quickened, to be awakened, to come to life, by these words, man. From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him, So when you go into the scriptures, because they was around what? Understanding. All right. And when they left Yahweh Shai, what did they go back to? Okay. This is Proverbs 21:16. The man that wandereth out of way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. Okay. So they left Yahweh Shai, unless you know anything outside of Yahweh Shai is within, okay, the congregation of the dead. Okay, because Yahweh Shai is the way, the truth, the life. Okay, real life is Yahweh Shai. The way to life is Yahweh Shai, man. Anything outside of there is the congregation of the dead. So 2/3, as our people continue to wonder, as it was prophesied, that we will be all spiritually dead in spiritual Egypt and Sodom. Okay, but then the breath of life will enter into the elect. Okay, and we will be brought back to the way of understanding, which is life. Okay, but you will have 2/3 that will continue to wonder, okay, out of the way of understanding and remain in the congregation of the dead. Okay, and let's go here. All right, now let's link 2/3 with the other nations. Okay, that's within the congregation of the dead. Let's go here. Go here to the book of Baruch. All right, this is the book of Baruch, chapter 3 and verse 9. It says, "Hear Israel, the commandments of life." You see that? Those that are quickened. All right, it says, "Give ear to understand wisdom. How happened in Israel that thou art in thy enemy's land, that thou art waxing old in a strange country, thou art defiled with the dead." Okay, these heathens, beginning with Esau. Okay, these heathens, they don't got it when it comes to living. Okay, that's why they need the people of life, Israel, ruling over them. Okay, so how have we become defiled with the dead? As we was punished, for our disobedience, the Lord allowed us, to be taken captive amongst the dead. Okay, verse 11, "Thou art counted with them that go down into the grave." Okay, so 2/3, okay, they refuse to awaken. All right, there's is not a lot for them to be awakened out of, their dead estate. They're going to continue. They're going to continue on, and they're going to be counted within their punishment of the dead. Okay, the difference is that 2/3, okay, are going to come back, but they're going to get caught up in this slaughter that's coming to the dead, which are these heathens, man. Okay, so there's many more precepts to go into, but just to expound on that. Okay, um, so let's go back to 2 Timothy. It's the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 4. All right, this 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2, it says, preach the word, be instant in season and out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and doctrine, man. Okay, and this is why you see the brothers out year round, rain, sleet, hail, snow, winter, summer, spring, fall. Okay, when it's not popular to be an Israelite, when it is trending, brothers is out, all right, teaching his word, all right, and they reproving, rebuking, okay, which our people hate rebuke and correction, but hey, we're commanded to do that, man, as the Lord is, grooming us to be judges, okay. It said, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned into fables, man. Okay, because if you're not of the elect, you're not built to endure, and if people become disenchanted, especially, as this thing requires patience, you know, patience and discipline, that roots out a lot of the undesirables. Okay, and patience, Jake, go to another doctrine that's, more instant gratification, that doesn't require, the amount of discipline. Okay, and that's what you have amongst, the church. You see, it said, but watch thou in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry, man. Yeah, so we here to make full proof of our ministry, man. The lots that we've been given, we here to maximize those lots, going back to what, stirring up those gifts, making full proof of the ministry, man, making use of, every opportunity, to forward this, man. Because if you had a 9 to 5 job and then you were trying to, have your little business on the side, you was really into it, man, you will make every use of every opportunity to forward that business on your break, your lunch break, before work, after work, every little free time you will try to pour into that business to get it off the ground, and that's how we should be about this ministry, man. Making full proof of it, man. Capitalizing on, on opportunities to forward this thing, man. Okay. It says, for I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. Okay. Because he knew, he was going to be beheaded for the faith. Okay. He was a prisoner of Rome. Okay. He had appealed to Caesar. Okay. And let me see. Let's see, it was Paul. Let's see if they got anything on it. Okay, let's get this real quick, just to get a little history surrounding, the death of Apostle Paul, which it was a political thing. Because I asked, was Paul charged with with treason. Okay. So it says the New Testament does not record the death of Apostle Paul. However, early, all right, Christian tradition has historical evidence strongly suggests that Paul was executed in Rome during the reign of Emperor Nero by around 64 to 68 AD. Because Paul was a Roman citizen, he was likely beheaded, which was considered a more honorable form of execution compared to crucifixion, the fate of non-citizens like Peter, according to tradition. Paul was not officially charged with treason in the modern political sense, but his execution was politically motivated. Here's what seems most likely. After the Great Fire of Rome, AD 64, Nero blamed Christians for the disaster. This led to a wave of persecution. Paul, as a prominent Christian leader, was arrested, possibly rearrested after his release from an early imprisonment and tried in Rome. His preaching about Yahushua as Lord and King would have been seen as a challenge to Roman authority since it conflicted with the imperial cult that declared Caesar as Lord. Okay? You see that? So they was able to flip the doctrine, and make it political. And these devils gonna do this today, man. They're gonna make what we teach, they're gonna turn this thing political, man. Okay, and make it, and it's gonna seem as if what they're doing to us is for the sake, okay, of democracy. Okay. You watch. It said, thus Paul was likely executed for his faith, viewed by Rome as a form of sedition or treason against the state, religion, and imperial authority, though the charge would have been couched, okay, in Roman legal terms. All right. So they ain't play fair. All right. So don't expect them to play fair this time. Okay. We're going to be numbered, okay, amongst the criminals, man. Okay. As it says in Isaiah 53, that's part of the cup, Yahushua. All right, he was that example of how we will be numbered, okay, amongst, the criminals, man. Okay. This is uh 2 Timothy 4:7 says, I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing. Okay, they love his appearing, and Lord will that's us, man, because we look forward to the appearing of Yahushua, man, a righteous kingdom. Okay, so there's a crown, rulership. Apostle Paul understood, there's rulership. There's a crown for me for this. You see, and we have to understand there's a crown for us, man. Not that, why I said not that me only, but hey, everyone that look forward to the appearing of Yahushua, because you look forward to Yahushua, you're looking forward to a righteous rulership, man. Okay, it said, do thy diligence to come shortly unto me, for Damas hath forsaken me, having loved this present world, and is departed unto Thessalonica, Crescens to Galatia, Titus unto Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. All right. So Paul, was a bandit. Now he had Demas, Demas, all right, and he loved this present world. He fell back into the world. Okay. Now Titus, which he will become, the leader, all right, of the church in I believe it was Colossus. I believe that was the church that Titus was over. No, it was Crete. I believe it was Crete, if I'm not mistaken, because we went over Titus. All right. Let me see, just a fact check. I believe it was Crete, Titus Church. Yeah, I think Crete was kind of rough. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, he was over Crete. All right, Titus, he had to go hold it down in Crete. But ultimately, Paul, this was his moment of Gethsemane moment, to where he had to face, all right, and he had to finish out pretty much on his own. He went through betrayal, and then Let's say Titus, he had to go to the church of Crete, hold down that church. Okay. So Paul, he had to hold it down. He had to finish out on his own. He just in the Garden of Gethsemane moment, man. Whether betrayal or whether, he calls, you know, um, or the Lord called to where, his companions, had, other duties to tend to, So we come to a time, man, we're gonna deal with betrayal, and we can be isolated, separated from brothers, separated, you know. Hey, we're gonna have to stand on faith, man. We all gonna have our moment, all right, of our Garden of Gethsemane moment. Okay, when Yahweh Shai, he had to bear the cross by himself. He had to do the hardest part by himself. It says, only Luke is with me. Take Mark and bring him with thee, for he is profitable to me for the ministry. And Tychus have I sent to Ephesus. The cloak that I left at Troas with Carpus, when thou comest, bring with thee, and the books, but especially the parchments, which is in paper. He's ready to keep working until it's over with. It said, Alexander the coppersmith did me much evil. The Lord reward him according to his works, of whom be thou where also, for he have greatly withstood our words, which, these coppersmith and blacksmith, they was making the killing of what? Idols. So as you had, Jake not worshiping idols turning to Yahweh Shai, that affected, their business, their market of of idolatry, man, idol makers. Okay. It says, in my first answer, no man stood with me, but all forsook me. I pray that the Most High, that it may not be laid to their charge, So he had to deal with those charges, when he was tried in Rome, he had to deal with that by himself. But he wasn't forsaken by the Most High. You see, the Most High was there, Yahweh Shai was there. And we have to remember that. We come into these times, like we're gonna be in some situations like, God damn, how did I get here? Want the Lord with us in the worst time, the Lord is with us, man. And that's when the Lord shows his power, against all odds, So we have to understand that that's how Yahweh Bashim Shai shows his power, when we're against all odds. Okay. So finishing out, and it says, notwithstanding, the Lord stood with me and strengthened me. You see that? We're going to be strengthened in the worst times, man. Okay, the Lord is our God. Okay, real quick, let's get that in that second Esdras 16. It speaks about Esau, great insurrection on those that fear the Lord, and which really it's all of Jake, but there's a remnant within that, that's going to be protected. Okay, so let's go here. Like coming down the home stretch, it's a clutch. Second Esdras 16:72. It says, for they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire. Okay, so we got to be tried. All right, but this trying is going to show who's his chosen. Okay, so we got to remain faithful, remain patient. Okay, and trust our power in the worst time, man. In the worst situation, we have to remain faithful to our power, man, and trust that he is. Okay, it says, hear, O ye my beloved, speaking to the elect, said the Lord, behold, the days of trouble are at hand. Okay, but I will deliver you from the same. Be you not afraid, neither doubt, for the Most High is your guide. Okay, you see, we're going to be guided through these things, man. So we're gonna go through betrayals and people we thought, like, damn, it's gonna be some plot twists, man. Because things got hard on Paul. You see, and that's another thing. The Lord finna take us through there, not for punishment. It's gonna refine our spirits, because we're gonna be trusting our power, in these situations, in these harsh circumstances and trusting our power in those circumstances, refining our spirit, making us more pure in the faith. Okay. And then also, as the Lord turn up our furnace, those that ain't really solid, they gonna leave. If someone is not really solid and not gonna suffer with us, because we gotta suffer with Yahweh, and the people around us, hey, they gonna have to suffer with us. Okay, and that's gonna be the Lord proving them as well. Okay, but so it's gonna be some betrayal, because everybody not built, for their suffering, man. And we pray that we are. Okay, so let's go back to 1 Timothy 4:18. I mean 2 Timothy 4:17. It said, notwithstanding the Lord stood with me and strengthened me, that by me the preaching might be fully known, and that all the Gentiles, Israelite foreigners, might hear, and I was delivered out of the mouth, okay, of the lion, and the Lord shall deliver me from every evil work, and will preserve me unto his heavenly kingdom, to whom be the glory forever and ever. Amen. Salute Prisca and Aquila and the household of Eunice Cyphorus. Okay. I keep going, jump there. All right, it said Erastus, a bald and current, but Trophimus have I left and Militum sick. Do thy diligence to come before winter. Eubulus greeted thee, and Punis and Linus and Claudia and all the brethren. The Lord Yahweh Shah Hamashiach be with thy spirit. Grace be with you. Amen. Okay, so that's the end of the book of Timothy. Okay, the second book of Timothy, the 4th chapter. Lord will, we'll start tapping into something else. Lord will, whatever the Spirit, allow. But the overall thing with this, chapter, was to finish strong in the faith. The Lord is going to perform miracles in the clutch, for us in this time. All right, the Lord is going to be guiding us, man. Hey, expect the angels to be working directly, with believers more, because as the trouble heightens, all right, the Lord's intervention gonna heighten as well, and we have to believe that, and the thing is just believing it, and acting according on their belief, you see. So Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters are edified. Till next time, I say shalom, Kwam Yashala, Abba, Shalom.